Nikola Tesla was already famous, the scientist whose experiments with electricity were destined to transform daily life in the 20th century. He dreamed of harnessing the wind and the sun to make free energy available for everyone.
For more than 80 years, one of Nikola Tesla's most mysterious inventions remained hidden behind a locked steel door, forgotten beneath a university building. It wasn't in a museum. It wasn't destroyed. It was still connected to electricity, waiting. Then, one ordinary day, a research team accidentally restored power to the machine. Within seconds, emergency alarms echoed through the building. Scientists were ordered to evacuate. Sensitive instruments began recording readings that made no sense. Soon, government agencies, including the EPA, DARPA, and several organizations that have never publicly identified themselves, were drawn into an investigation that remains surrounded by unanswered questions. What could a machine designed decades before modern computers still do that terrified experts in the 21st century? And why were Tesla's final experiments hidden from the world for so long? Nikola Tesla wasn't just one of history's greatest inventors. He was a visionary, obsessed with unlocking forces that many believed should never be touched. When he died alone on January 7, 1943, government officials immediately seized his papers, inventions, and research, claiming it was a matter of national security. But they overlooked one critical secret: Tesla's final laboratory. Hidden in plain sight, it remained untouched for decades, while thousands of students, professors, and staff unknowingly walked directly above it every single day. Behind a massive steel door, his last and most mysterious machine sat silently in complete darkness, still wired to power. Today, we're uncovering the astonishing story of that forgotten laboratory, what researchers discovered when the machine came back to life, and why some people believe Tesla's final invention was decades or even centuries ahead of its time. Before we reveal what happened next, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. We're getting closer to our next subscriber milestone, and you won't want to miss the incredible mysteries coming next. Now let's unlock the door that history tried to keep closed. Dr. James Whitmore had built his entire career studying the kinds of details most people ignored. While other researchers focused on flashy discoveries, Whitmore specialized in something far less glamorous: how copper and other early 20th century alloys changed after decades of electrical stress and constant electromagnetic exposure. To most people, it sounded like routine laboratory work. But sometimes the smallest details lead to the biggest discoveries. Those who worked with Whitmore often struggled to describe him. Some thought he was eccentric. Others believed he was one of the smartest engineers they had ever met. His colleagues agreed that his unconventional way of thinking allowed him to notice patterns everyone else overlooked. In many ways, they said, he reminded them of Nikola Tesla himself, a brilliant but highly unconventional mind whose extraordinary imagination was both his greatest strength and perhaps his greatest weakness. Whitmore's discovery began completely by accident. While reviewing old property records for an unrelated research project, he stumbled across a collection of forgotten maintenance files and decades-old transfer documents. These weren't classified military archives or secret government reports. They were ordinary administrative records that had simply been collecting dust for generations, the kind of paperwork almost nobody ever opens. One document immediately caught his attention. Dated 1947, it described the building as a former experimental facility and included a brief but unusual note stating that all underground levels were to remain permanently sealed under federal directive. That single sentence changed the direction of Whitmore's research. Over the following months, he carefully reconstructed the building's ownership history. The original construction blueprints revealed something highly unusual. The basement had been fitted with extensive copper shielding, far beyond what any normal building would ever require. Additional invoices showed that specialized high-voltage electrical capacitors had been purchased in 1941 and installed inside a hidden underground chamber. Then, Whitmore uncovered the document that made everything far more intriguing. A building permit issued in 1938 authorized extensive modifications to the basement. The approval listed only one name: N. Tesla. Even after making the connection, entering the sealed chamber proved far more difficult than finding it. For nearly 6 months, Whitmore battled endless paperwork, safety inspections, insurance evaluations, and university approvals. Administrators questioned whether opening a forgotten underground level, one missing from every modern building plan, was worth the expense. Every step forward required another approval, but Whitmore refused to give up. Finally, in early 2024, his team received permission to enter. They slowly descended into the forgotten lower level for the first time in decades. The underground corridor was coated with dust, but remained remarkably well preserved. There were no collapsed ceilings, no flooding, and almost no structural damage. The thick stone walls and reinforced concrete had protected the chamber exactly as Tesla may have intended, maintaining a stable temperature, keeping moisture out, and isolating everything inside from the world above. At the end of the passage stood a massive steel door. It immediately commanded attention. Heavy reinforcements surrounded its frame, and its locking mechanism looked unlike any commercially manufactured system from that era. Everything about the door suggested it had been custom-built to secure whatever waited behind it. Opening it wasn't easy. A professional locksmith spent nearly 2 hours carefully working through the complex mechanism before the lock finally released. As the heavy door slowly swung open, decades-old air drifted into the hallway. It felt stale but surprisingly well preserved. There was no sign of mold, water damage, or decay. The sealed chamber had remained almost perfectly intact, protected for decades by thick stone walls and complete isolation from the outside environment. The room measured roughly 20 feet across. Every wall was covered from floor to ceiling with sheets of copper. Then, as flashlight beams swept across the darkness, something slowly emerged at the center of the chamber. A machine, unlike anything anyone on the team had ever seen. Before we reveal what they discovered next, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Stories like this only become more unbelievable from here, and you won't want to miss what happens next. The machine bore no resemblance to any invention found in Tesla's published patents. Standing nearly 6 feet tall and 4 feet wide, it consisted of multiple concentric copper rings arranged with astonishing precision. Each ring nested perfectly inside another, creating a design that looked less like traditional machinery and more like an intricate architectural sculpture. Hundreds of carefully hand-wound copper coils wrapped around the structure. Every winding displayed remarkable consistency, suggesting Tesla had perfected the design countless times in his mind before ever assembling the physical machine. A massive resonance coil formed the base, while a tall ceramic insulator extended from the top, pointing upward like the raised baton of an orchestra conductor frozen in time. Although the copper had darkened to deep green and brown after more than 80 years, the structure itself remained almost flawless. Not a single wire had snapped, no ring had shifted. Whatever alloy Tesla had chosen had survived the passage of time with extraordinary durability. Metal shelves surrounding the chamber held another priceless discovery. Neatly organized notebooks, loose papers, diagrams, and handwritten calculations filled the room. These weren't official publications or archived government copies. They were Tesla's personal working journals. Every page contained complex equations, detailed sketches, experimental observations, and notes that sometimes sounded less like scientific research and more like warnings. When historian Dr. Elena Vasquez joined the investigation during the second week, she carefully photographed every document before anyone disturbed its original position. She handled each page with extraordinary caution, fully aware that the collection could be completely irreplaceable. Then one particular passage stopped her. Near the end of the third notebook, she found a handwritten statement unlike anything else in the journals. She read it once, then again, then a third time, before quietly calling the others over. The handwriting appeared hurried, with deep pen pressure suggesting Tesla had written the words with unusual urgency. One handwritten passage immediately caught Dr. Elena Vasquez's attention. It read, "The Earth itself is a conductor, wound like a great coil. Find the proper frequency, and limitless energy belongs to those willing to listen." Years later, she admitted it wasn't the scientific theory that unsettled her, it was the confidence behind the words. Tesla hadn't written that unlimited energy could exist, or that it might become possible someday. He wrote as though he had already achieved it. That realization alone changed the atmosphere inside the chamber. But an even bigger surprise was waiting. The team soon discovered that Tesla's mysterious machine had never actually been disconnected from power. The first person to notice was Marcus Chen, the youngest member of the research team and a graduate student in electrical engineering. His assignment was simple: document the chamber's electrical infrastructure before anyone touched the equipment. While tracing a length of copper tubing along the wall with his flashlight, he suddenly froze. Slowly standing up, he followed the tubing with his eyes until it disappeared into the stone wall. Looking toward Dr. Whitmore, he quietly said, "This thing is still wired." It wasn't connected through modern electrical cables, but through original copper conduits installed around 1941, hidden inside the walls and still tied into the building's electrical network. Chen spent the next day carefully tracing every connection. His investigation revealed that the tubing led to a large bank of electrical capacitors hidden inside a separate basement alcove. Although corrosion had covered much of the equipment and the insulation had become brittle with age, the terminals remained intact, and the wiring still connected directly to the building's main electrical panel. For more than 80 years, no one had realized that Tesla's sealed laboratory had technically remained live the entire time. The discovery left the entire team facing a difficult decision. The obvious course of action was to document everything, notify the university's safety department, and allow qualified inspectors to examine the system before anyone attempted to activate it. That was standard scientific procedure and the responsible thing to do, but standing in front of an 80-year-old machine built by Nikola Tesla, still connected to electricity after all those decades, made simply walking away almost impossible. Curiosity eventually won. On March 14, 2024, Dr. Whitmore located the original electrical control panel mounted on the eastern basement wall. Thick layers of dust covered the switches, and they appeared untouched since the era of President Franklin Roosevelt. Nearly every handwritten label had faded beyond recognition, except for one. Written clearly in Tesla's own handwriting were three unforgettable words: resonance chamber, do not activate. Dr. Elena Vasquez immediately recognized the handwriting, after spending weeks studying Tesla's journals. Whitmore would later describe what happened next as the greatest moment of scientific weakness in his career. Everyone understood exactly what the warning meant. They also understood they were about to energize an 80-year-old experimental device designed by one of history's greatest electrical minds. Yet at precisely 2:47 p.m., Whitmore reached forward and flipped the switch. For the first 3 seconds, absolutely nothing happened. Then a deep vibration slowly filled the room. It wasn't exactly a sound. It was something that could be felt before it could be heard, a low-frequency hum that seemed to resonate through everyone's chest. The vibration steadily grew stronger, and after roughly 20 seconds, the machine's copper coils began glowing with a soft blue-green light. There were no sparks, no visible electrical arcs, and none of the effects anyone expected from conventional electrical equipment. Instead, the entire machine seemed to come alive. Moments later, emergency alarms echoed throughout the building. Modern monitoring systems installed decades after Tesla's death detected an enormous electromagnetic disturbance spreading outward from the basement. It wasn't a power surge or an electrical overload. The sensors detected an expanding electromagnetic field. Whitmore immediately rushed back to the control panel and switched the power off, but the humming continued. The external electricity had been disconnected, yet the machine kept running. Later examination of Tesla's notebooks explained exactly why. Despite decades of corrosion, the old capacitors had retained enough residual charge to trigger a self-sustaining electromagnetic resonance inside the machine. Once activated, the system no longer depended on outside electricity. For nearly 30 seconds, it generated and maintained its own electromagnetic field, while emergency personnel searched for the master disconnect controlling the basement. Only after the building's main electrical supply was completely isolated did the humming slowly fade and the mysterious glow finally disappear. By then, the building had already been evacuated. Within 2 hours, specialists from the EPA's Environmental Response Team arrived, carrying spectrum analyzers, dosimeters, and electromagnetic field detectors. Their goal was simply to measure what had occurred inside the chamber. Instead, they recorded readings unlike anything they had ever encountered. During less than 90 seconds of operation, Tesla's machine generated the strongest localized, non-ionizing electromagnetic field they had ever measured. The numbers seemed so impossible that multiple technicians recalibrated their instruments before accepting the results. Yet the most astonishing discovery wasn't the strength of the field, it was its frequency. Every instrument showed exactly 7.83 Hz. That number is known today as the Schumann resonance, the Earth's natural electromagnetic frequency, first mathematically described in 1952 by physicist Winfried Otto Schumann, nearly a decade after Tesla's death. Often called the Earth's electromagnetic heartbeat, this frequency surrounds the planet continuously, produced by interactions between the Earth's surface and the ionosphere. Remarkably, certain patterns of human brain activity during deep sleep also occur near this same frequency. Tesla never knew the term Schumann resonance, but his notebooks revealed that he had independently concluded the Earth functioned as a giant resonating electrical system. He believed that if someone could match its natural frequency, the planet itself could transmit energy across enormous distances. Suddenly, every detail of the machine made sense. The spacing of the copper rings, the dimensions of the coils, the resistance of every wire. Nothing had been accidental. Tesla hadn't built an ordinary electrical generator. He had engineered an enormous tuning device designed to resonate with the Earth itself. And that realization raised one final, unsettling question. If the machine could produce such extraordinary results during only 90 seconds of operation inside a small underground chamber, what might it have been capable of if Tesla had ever operated it at full scale? What Tesla ultimately buried beneath that forgotten laboratory was far more than an experimental machine. It was a vision that may have been decades ahead of its time. Dr. Harold Chen, a physicist at Stanford University with expertise in large-scale electromagnetic systems and no relation to Marcus Chen, was among the first outside researchers to examine the data collected after the chamber was activated. After reviewing the findings shared through the university's research network, he wrote an internal memorandum that would later become public. His conclusion challenged nearly everything people believed about Tesla's final work. According to Dr. Chen, Tesla wasn't trying to create wireless power in the way most people imagine today, where electricity travels between a transmitter and a nearby receiver, with efficiency dropping over distance. Instead, Tesla appeared to be pursuing something fundamentally different. His goal was to use the Earth itself as the transmission system. The implications of that idea are almost impossible to ignore. Rather than sending electricity through wires or towers, Tesla envisioned injecting energy directly into the Earth's natural electromagnetic resonance, allowing it to spread across the planet without traditional infrastructure. In theory, energy produced in one location could become available anywhere on Earth without power lines, substations, or massive electrical grids. Anyone possessing a properly tuned receiver could potentially access that energy directly from the ground beneath their feet. While the concept sounds like science fiction, the underlying physics are not imaginary. The Earth's own electromagnetic environment already demonstrates that large-scale resonance is possible. Lightning strikes constantly generate electromagnetic waves that travel around the globe through the cavity formed between the Earth's surface and the ionosphere. Scientists know this phenomenon today as the Schumann resonance. Tesla wasn't inventing a new law of physics. He was attempting to harness one that already existed. Even more astonishing, the measurements recorded during the chamber's activation on March 14, 2024, suggested that his machine had successfully matched that natural planetary frequency. That possibility forces an uncomfortable question. Nikola Tesla, the inventor who died alone in a New York hotel room in 1943 after years of financial hardship and professional rejection, may have quietly completed the very project many experts believed could never work. If the evidence truly reflects what occurred inside that basement, Tesla had built a device capable, at least in theory, of delivering electrical energy on a global scale. Yet instead of revealing it to the world, he locked it away. Why would he hide something so revolutionary? The answer may begin decades earlier with the Wardenclyffe Tower project. Financier J.P. Morgan initially funded Tesla's ambitious plan, believing it would become a profitable communications system. But as the true purpose became clear, that Tesla intended to distribute electricity wirelessly on a global scale, Morgan reportedly asked a question that has echoed through history. If anyone can draw power from the air, where do I put the meter? Soon afterward, the funding disappeared, construction stopped, and Wardenclyffe was abandoned. Most history books end Tesla's story there, portraying him as a brilliant inventor whose greatest dream collapsed because financial interests refused to support it. But the evidence inside the hidden laboratory suggests the story may not have ended at all. Instead of giving up, Tesla simply disappeared from public attention. He stopped chasing investors, avoided publicity, and continued working in complete secrecy. Quietly and alone, he refined his theories, solved engineering problems that had defeated him years earlier, and eventually constructed a functioning device inside a sealed underground chamber that almost no one knew existed. He finished what Wardenclyffe had begun, and then placed it behind a reinforced steel door with a handwritten warning instructing anyone who found it not to activate the system. Dr. Elena Vasquez noticed something else while studying Tesla's final notebooks. The tone of his writing gradually changed. Earlier pages read like careful scientific observations, but the final entries felt different. The handwriting became heavier, more urgent, as though Tesla had already imagined every possible consequence of his invention and was struggling to explain what future generations needed to understand. He appeared to realize that a technology capable of eliminating global energy shortages could also become one of the most powerful tools of control ever created. If a single government or organization controlled a worldwide wireless energy network, it could theoretically deny electricity to any location on Earth instantly without destroying infrastructure or cutting transmission lines. Entire cities could simply lose power at the push of a switch, leaving no obvious target to defend and no warning before it happened. Seen in the context of 1943, these fears no longer seem irrational. The world was engulfed in war, and governments across the globe had already demonstrated their willingness to weaponize every technological advantage available. Tesla didn't need to imagine how a discovery like his might be abused. He was witnessing that reality unfold around him. Faced with the possibility that his life's greatest achievement could become humanity's most dangerous weapon, he made an extraordinary decision. He neither published the technology nor destroyed it. Instead, he sealed it away, left it connected, placed a warning beside the switch, and returned to room 3327 of the New Yorker hotel, where he would spend the final days of his life. Perhaps the most remarkable part of this story isn't what Tesla built, it's what he chose not to do. He never destroyed the machine. He left it intact, left it connected, and left behind a warning. It was almost as if he believed that one day someone would find it, but only when humanity was ready. After the 2024 activation, Tesla's journals were digitized, the chamber was sealed again, and government agencies quickly requested access to the data. The scientific community split in two. Some researchers argued the machine should never be powered on again until its risks were fully understood. Others believed Tesla had already solved one of the greatest engineering challenges in history, and that rebuilding the device should become an immediate priority. The original machine, however, has remained silent ever since. Researchers continue studying Tesla's century-old notes, searching for answers hidden inside equations that still challenge modern engineering. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, decisions are being made about what should happen next, and by whom. What Tesla left behind wasn't simply an invention, it was a choice. A technology capable of transforming civilization could also become one of the most powerful tools of control ever created. In the right hands, it could redefine the future of energy. In the wrong hands, it could become something far more dangerous. That's why Tesla locked it away. Not because he failed, but because he succeeded. The machine still waits exactly where he left it. The warning remains on the switch. The only thing that has changed is that the world now knows the secret exists. The real question was never whether Tesla's machine would work. The real question was whether humanity is ready for it. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. There are countless forgotten inventions, hidden laboratories, and buried mysteries still waiting to be uncovered, and we'll be exploring them together in the next video.